Welcome to the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. My name is Elizabeth Lyons. I'm a 6-time author, and I help people write and publish powerful, thought-provoking nonfiction and memoir without any more overthinking, second-guessing, or overwhelm than absolutely necessary. Because let's face it, some overthinking, second-guessing, and overwhelm is going to come with the territory if you're anything like me. I believe that story and shared perspective is one of the most potent ways we connect with one another, and that your story, perspective, and insights are destined to become someone else's favorite resource. For more book writing, publishing, and how the heck do I move through this glitch tips and solutions, and plenty of free and low-cost resources, visit publishaprofitablebook.com. And for recommendations of fabulous books you've possibly never heard of, book writing inspiration, and the occasional meme so relatable you'll wonder if it was created with you in mind, follow me on Instagram at Elizabeth Lyons Author. Hi, everybody, and welcome to episode 50 of the Write the Damn Book Already podcast. I swear, when I was starting with 1, I couldn't even imagine being at 20, let alone 50. And it just shows that we get where we get, like one word, one podcast, one episode, one thought at a time. A while ago, I did an episode, and I will link to it in the show notes for easy access, that was it's one of my most popular episodes to date. And it was titled, and I'm paraphrasing, like, I want to write a book, but now what? And it was kind of how it's that paralyzing moment when you think, I really want to do this, but what do I do and how do I do it? The second most common question that I not only hear, but certainly asked in the beginning of my experience in the publishing space was, okay, so then I'm going to write the book, but then what? So we go from now what to then what? And what this is really coming down to is, what are all the different publishing options available to you? Which ones are good? Which ones are bad? What should you stay away from? What should you put your time into, your money into, etc.? It can be a really overwhelming question and a really overwhelming space to be in your brain, because our brain does crazy things to us. Really, when it comes to anything, it's not just book publishing. I hear the same things in the entrepreneurial space. Should I get an investor? Should I bootstrap it? Should I prove the concept first and then go try to get an investor? If I get investors, should it be friends and family, or do I go after VCs? So please know that if you're contemplating what the best approach is for your book, you're absolutely not alone. And my goal in this episode is to really help simplify the different options, help you know which one, because there's really only one, to steer clear of, and remind you that there are pros and cons to absolutely every publishing process paradigm out there. And truly, having spoken with hundreds, if not many hundreds, of authors over the years, as long as you know what you're getting into and your expectations are set properly, you will fall on the side of the pros, not the cons. The cons to almost every publishing approach out there show up when you don't know that that's how it's going to go. And then you're disappointed and you look back later and go, well, if I had known that, I wouldn't have done it. But the truth is, you actually might have done it. It just feels like a disappointment in the moment because you thought it was going to be different. So what I want to try to do in this episode is break down the 3 main paradigms, and we could even consolidate numbers 2 and 3 into 1 if we wanted to, but of publishing. So the first model or paradigm is traditional publishing. And this is what you think of when you think of J.K. Rowling and Brené Brown and James Patterson and Emily Henry and all these folks. These are the big guys. This is the big 5 publishing houses. Typically, although it's starting to expand well outside of that now, which is really interesting. So we've got the big 5 publishing houses, which are HarperCollins, Penguin Random House, Hachette, Macmillan, and Simon & Schuster. And each of those big publishing houses has a number of imprints, so many imprints, in fact, that many times you'll hear an imprint and not even realize that it's associated with that big 5 house. But for the most part, some authors are hell-bent on it's traditional or bust. And absolutely zero judgment there. They're very quick to admit this is an ego play. I want a big house and I want all the things that come with it. And they're also very quick to recognize, usually from other people in their space, that all the things that we think come with it actually don't. So for a little bit more information on that, you can refer back, and I'll put this in the show notes too, to the episode I did with Neely Alexander, whose debut novel, Love Buzz, came out with Harper Perennial in May of 2023. And she just had a great experience. She had a 2-book deal with them. The second one will be out hopefully tomorrow. It won't, but I wish it were. And she was very forthcoming about her experience and the fact that for her, it was traditional or bust. Like that's the only way she wanted to do it. And she made that work. Incidentally, because I find that one of the best possible ways to really commit yourself to something is to make an announcement that you're going to do it. She and I are going to do a follow-up podcast where we're actually going to break down the process of from draft to deal. So from drafting your novel to getting the publishing deal, and her experience with that to really help people understand the process. No, there is not a simple 10-step process for writing a book, but in many cases, there is a process, I wouldn't go so far as to call it simple, but of getting a book deal that involves things like querying an agent. So writing your query letter, writing your proposal, all those sorts of things. We're going to tackle all of that. So stay tuned. Hopefully within the next 3 or 4 weeks, we'll be able to get that episode recorded and out. So if you're not already subscribing, why don't you just hit that subscribe button right now so you don't miss it? All right, so I've given you the high level of what traditional publishing is, and there are pros and cons to it. Then we have models 2 and 3. So model 2 is what I refer to, and many people refer to it as hybrid publishing. Now, there's hybrid publishing and there's vanity publishing. Those terms are interchanged, but there is a big difference between hybrid and vanity. It's a little difference in the grand scheme of things, but it's a big whopping difference in your experience. So I'm going to explain that. The bottom line is the one thing I would never advise is to go with a vanity publisher. And it is very rare that I say never do this or always do this. I have yet to talk to someone who has had a good experience with a vanity publisher. So we'll get into that. And then the third type of publishing is self-publishing. So I can just tackle this right out of the gate. The reason that hybrid and self-publishing could really be combined is because they're very much the same in the sense that both are author financed. So if you're self-publishing, then you are taking on the financial responsibility of hiring an editor, finding a cover designer and hiring them, finding an interior format and hiring them, figuring out how to upload to Amazon and or Ingram Spark, whatever you want to do, determining how you want to price your book, and then doing all of your marketing, which for the record, you're going to do the vast majority, if not all of your marketing, no matter how you publish, even with a traditional house, but we'll get to that. When you hybrid publish, it's still author financed. The difference is that you are hiring a publishing house who knows what they're doing, who is your partner in the sense that they know what they're doing, they have the resources available in terms of designers, interior designers, they can help guide you when it comes to pricing, they are uploading for you. So it's a great option for people who want to maintain control, they want creative control, they want to maintain the highest possible profit margin, they want the shortest time to market, and they don't want to do it themselves. Even if they have a framework laid out on how to do it, such as shameless self-plug for my course, Publish a Profitable Book, which shows you step by step exactly how to self-publish a book that is the same quality as any New York Times bestseller on the shelf, they don't want to do it. They don't have the time to do it. So you're hiring someone who knows what they're doing to do that for you. And there are some very important things to keep in mind when you're doing that. There are specific reasons why people choose to go traditional. When you are writing fiction, so I want to call it a theory, but I think it's more than a theory. I just haven't ever seen it printed as fact. But fiction sells on plot, nonfiction and memoir sell on platform. Same really with essays. Memoir and essays are historically challenging to sell to a traditional house, to an editor at a traditional house. if you are not extraordinarily well known and or have an extremely large platform. It's not impossible. Nothing is impossible, but it is more of an uphill battle than is selling fiction to a traditional house or getting an agent to rep it and then finding an editor at a house who's interested in acquiring it. There are very successful memoirs out there that aren't written by renowned names. There are very successful essay collections that are written by folks without enormous platforms, but they seem to be the exception, not the rule. So if that is the genre in which you are writing, then just know that going into it. It can be a more challenging space to get a deal than is the fiction space. Additionally, with fiction, and Neely spoke to this in her episode, Neely started when she got her agent and they started going out on submission, she had like 200 Facebook friends and that was it. So they weren't concerned at all with her following. They were concerned with her plot and they believed that her plot could sell, and it did. She wrote a great book. So it's a different mindset on the part of the publisher and what they're going to take on, what they're going to invest their dollars in. One of the reasons that people want a traditional house is that it's an ego play. And they're very, very honest about that. They want to be able to say, hey, my story was picked up by Penguin Random House or HarperCollins. That's very important to them, and that's okay. And sometimes they change their mind on that when after a year or two, they just aren't getting any bites from agents or from editors at houses. Another reason that I hear that people want to go with a traditional house is more of a myth because it's because they believe that the traditional house will do all of their marketing for them. They don't want to market. They don't feel that they know how to market. They don't feel comfortable selling. And so they want someone else to do it for them. Please hear me. Traditional houses have less disposable income to work with than ever before. If you are with a traditional house, you will likely never even really know how much the marketing budget is for your book. Unless you are a Colleen Hoover or a James Patterson or a Brene Brown, the marketing dollars contributed to your book are going to be extremely low. Now, there are exceptions to this, and this is why I want to talk about the traditional publishing world, because there are some new boutique traditional publishers. Traditional publishing is not defined or relegated just to the big five. If a publishing house pays an advance to the author, and then usually they're going to retain 90% on the back end, but let's remember that they're investing 100% on the front end. So for me, the measure of whether or not a house is operating under the traditional model comes down to whether or not they pay the author in advance. And there are a lot of smaller, what I consider boutique traditional houses that are popping up and doing exactly that. One of my favorites right now is Zibby Owens' publishing house, Zibby Books. And these publishing houses are very intent on disrupting the way that publishing has been going. And they are intent on giving a voice to voices that have not traditionally been heard, that have not traditionally been perceived as being, air quote, see the air quotes, good business. They are partnering with their authors. It's still a business though. So in order to get that traditional deal, it's very important that you recognize the importance of having a great query letter that gets you a great agent to begin with. Not just the first agent who's willing to sign necessarily, but the one that feels right for your project. And then who can take that project and sell it to a traditional house, which again seems to be happening more easily these days anyway with fiction than it does with memoir, nonfiction, or essays. And of those three, nonfiction is probably the, see the air quotes, easiest, because if you have a sizable platform that is engaged, you can fairly well show a publishing house that you have people to sell to. That being said, I know of people who have hundreds of thousands of followers and rarely talk about their book. And guess what? Their book isn't selling. So some of the pros of traditional publishing are frankly obvious. You get assigned an editor, which is absolutely great. There are times when traditionally published authors will end up hiring an editor on the side, believe it or not, outside of that. Because editors right now in New York, I'm just going to say New York because that's kind of the hub of it all, are as inundated as everyone else is. They've got more on their plate than they can handle. And sometimes authors feel like, help me help you. I want to get this thing through faster. I want to have a little more attention on it. I want to have eyeballs on it more thoroughly. And so they're actually hiring outside editors to help them shore up their work. But you get an editor assigned to you, and just for the record, sometimes that editor ends up leaving midway through. A full cycle publishing usually it can take 12 to 24 months. And so if your editor leaves the publishing house in the middle of the process, you're going to get assigned another editor, and you may or may not vibe as well with him or her. He or she may not be as excited about your project as the editor who originally acquired the manuscript. So that's just something to keep in mind. They take care of cover design. They take care of interior formatting. The cover design and your title is very often switched by the marketing team and or the publisher, and you often don't have much, if any, of a say in that because they are choosing based on their experience, what they believe will sell, what cover design they believe will sell, those sorts of things. So if you go into the traditional publishing world, knowing that, you're less likely to be disrupted when it comes down the pike. Oh, by the way, we're changing the title. Or, oh, by the way, we are negotiating on cover design. We don't like the original one. We're going in a different direction. And no, you can't have input on this. There are plenty of traditionally published authors right now who are having wonderful experiences with their houses, both within the big five and with the smaller boutique houses. If there weren't, the whole system would crash. So this is by no means hey, this is how it is across the board. This is simply be aware of how things actually work. Be aware of your timelines. Be aware that advances are much higher, again, seemingly, in the realm of fiction than they are in nonfiction, memoir, and essay. And that the advance is just that. It's an advance against earnings. It's not a signing bonus. So you've got to earn that out before you'll see another penny. And then if you earn that out, then you will receive, 10 to 15% of sales from that point on, paid out however the company pays it out. It may end up being quarterly, it may be monthly, it may be semi-annually. It really depends on the publishing house. But things are changing so quickly in the traditional world that a lot of people understandably are just like, I don't want to wait. And that was certainly my experience 20 years ago when I first started publishing. I just didn't want to hear no one more time. I really believed in what I had written. I really believed it could help people. I wanted to get it out there. And so I just wanted to do it on my own because at the end of the day, having HarperCollins or Simon & Schuster on the back cover or the spine of your book is not going to sell your book. People knowing about your book is what sells your book. It's impressive for about 6 seconds that you've been published by HarperCollins. That in and of itself doesn't pay the bills. It doesn't guarantee you another book deal with HarperCollins or anyone else. So in many ways, no matter how you publish, it's this kind of constant effort to be creative and get the word out about the book. But another reason that people choose traditional publishing is they fervently believe that if one of these big houses signs off or acquires your manuscript, that means it's good. And we're all looking for that kind of validation. That validation, however, only lasts as long as it lasts. The minute that your book is on the market and not selling, you might very well lose the ear of your publishing house. And that can feel exactly the opposite of how you felt when you first got that deal. So that's traditional publishing. And again, pretty soon, Neely Alexander and I are going to do a whole show breaking down the steps of from draft to deal so that you know exactly what they are. Neely is super forthcoming about all the resources she used, the services she found incredibly valuable, could not live without, and the things that she might not do the next time around. So I know that'll be a really incredible episode for anyone who's even considering traditional publishing. And full disclosure, I'm considering it for the novel that I'm currently working on. I don't think I would go that route for nonfiction. I've already done 6 by myself. I don't know why I would do that unless the advance were enormous and I had creative control and all those sorts of things. I never say never, But for the novel, I may very well choose to attempt that route. We'll see. Part of it is I just want to be able to have the experience. I'll be completely honest. I would be willing to trade some aspects of self-publishing, which I love, for just being able to go through the experience. And that being said, the experience will only be what it is for me. And it might be if I do that. And it might end up being completely different with one publisher than it would have been had I ended up with a different publisher. So it's really important to keep those things in mind and realize that no one person's experience is a measure of the whole. Let's talk about hybrid and vanity publishing. There are a lot of Facebook groups dedicated to self-publishing. And in nearly all of them, I see with incredible frequency, posts that say things like, do not ever pay anyone to publish your book. That's not a real publisher. I would argue that in 9 out of 10 of those cases, those individuals are saying that and posting that because they have unfortunately had a really bad experience with a vanity publisher. And that makes my heart hurt. It really does. As I mentioned at the beginning of this episode, hybrid publishing is really self-publishing. It's professional self-publishing. That's what it is. The details of it vary a lot. I actually have in my latest book, Write the Damn Book Already, a full list of questions to make sure that you ask your hybrid publisher just so that you know what the answer is. Because everything can vary from how much it costs up front to how much you're paid on the back end, to how much of a percentage they take out on the back end, their payment schedules, what happens if they go out of business. All those sorts of things are things to be aware of. The big red flag when it comes to vanity publishing, because this is where the rubber meets the road in terms of the difference between hybrid and vanity. If someone reaches out to you with an interest in publishing your book, before a week ago, I would have said, run. I've changed that just slightly because in my last episode, episode 49, I interviewed Jamie Varon, who has written nonfiction and her first novel is coming out in September of 2023. And she had a somewhat unique experience where a publishing house actually did reach out to her and said they really wanted to work on a book with her and then ended up paying her in advance. It was what I would call a boutique traditional publisher, and they did pay her in advance. Here's where the red flag is. If someone reaches out to you and expresses interest in publishing your book and wants money, it is just run fast in the other direction. Vanity publishers have sales teams that spend a good amount of time in Facebook groups where aspiring authors and soon-to-be published authors gather. And the minute that someone posts, I've got a book coming out soon, I'm not sure how I'm going to publish it, yada, yada, they are on them. They are in their DMs. They are in your DMs. They are saying, hey, we heard you've got this book. We're super interested. We've looked at your social media. We think you're amazing. We really want to partner with this. And it's not long before it comes to light that it's like, we really want to do this and it's only going to cost you $15,000. And that is not meant to say that $15,000 is good or bad or a lot or a little. The point is there are some really reputable hybrid publishing houses that charge $15,000. There's a lot of really valuable stuff included in that package. The dollar amount isn't the issue. I say it's called vanity publishing because it's about the vanity of the publishing house. They are so vain that all they're about is getting your money. And once they do, they're typically gone. So once your book is on the market, the number of vanity publishers who fold, they go out of business, they do not pay their authors, they make ordering author copies almost impossible. It is not a partnership. You are handcuffing yourself to this company, and they really just don't care. They don't care about cover design. They don't care how the interior looks. They just don't care. They're just about providing this service, air quotes again, in exchange for your hard-earned dollars. That's vanity publishing. That is so different from hybrid publishing. A hybrid publisher can absolutely go out of business. A traditional imprint can fold. If you subscribe to Jane Friedman's Hot Sheet, and I do, and I think Jane is remarkable, and the Hot Sheet comes out every 2 weeks, and it's really an update on the publishing space. What's new, what's coming down the pike. Today we're in August of 2023, there's a whole section dedicated to imprints at the big five houses that are folding. They are collapsing because they are no longer profitable. And what do you do if you are an author who has been signed to that imprint? Or maybe your last book was signed to that imprint and you were hoping to get another deal, but now the imprint is gone. It's no different. So that's why it's important to simply know when you work with a traditional house, when you work with a hybrid house, what happens if you guys go out of business? If you go with a traditional publisher, what happens if my editor decides to leave you? What's the process? They won't be able to tell you exactly what's going to happen, but what is their process when something like that does happen? What are the reasons why your publication date could be delayed significantly? Just knowing those things, and your agent will be able to help you understand a lot of those things too, because they've been navigating that for years. But we've talked about this recently. What are the AI rights that you're selling in your contract when you're with a traditional house, when you're with a hybrid house? Either way, be absolutely sure that you're looking at those contracts and those agreements and you know what all of those things are. So again, hybrid is really it's got such a bad name, as does self-publishing, because people are still under this weird assumption that if you self-publish or if you hybrid publish, and most people don't say I hybrid published, they'll say, well, I published with a small house. And nobody's asking, well, what was your advance? And if they are, most people aren't giving that information, even with a traditional house. It's really none of anybody's business, and it's often highly misunderstood. Again, from the episode with Neely Alexander, she revealed that her advance was 6 figures, and that, of course, everyone was like, oh my God, you're set, you're golden. And she said, listen, guys, once I pay my agents, my publicists, split that out over 3 years, I still have a very full-time job. It's lovely. But it's not paying all the bills. We're not moving to Bali and calling it a day. So unfortunately, it just hasn't really caught up yet that people outside the publishing space recognize that it really all feeds into the same thing. When all is said and done, you are going to have to market your book. You are going to have, if you want to sell it. You are going to have to talk about it, or you are going to have to hire someone else to talk about it. The end. And most people, if they're going to buy your book, will have to hear about it between 8 and 13 times before they do. Our attention spans are crap. Like, they're gone. Believing otherwise is just setting yourself up for disappointment. It truly, truly is. Self-publishing is an incredible option for people who are willing to understand what the steps are. And again, understanding those steps is not hard. They're laid out in all kinds of places. I have a course. Other people have courses. You can Google it until you're blue in the face. It'll take longer, but you can absolutely, that's how I figured it out 2 decades ago. But you're doing all the work, and you don't have a partner necessarily to bounce all of your questions off of. Now, depending if you're enrolled in a course, lots of times the course creator, like I have coaching calls every 2 weeks, and anyone who's in any of my courses can join those calls and they can ask questions. So they can say, oh my God, do I need to formally copyright? What do you think about this cover? What should I do about this, that, or the other thing? How about back cover copy? And we can talk through all of those things during those calls. So those are the sorts of questions that whether you're self-publishing or hybrid publishing, you don't want to just assume, especially if you're hybrid publishing, oh my gosh, this person is willing to take me on. And that's, by the way, another big, big difference between hybrid and vanity publishers. Vanity publishers will take anything. I could literally, I could find a 6-year-old and have him or her write 8 sentences and call up a vanity publisher and say, would you be interested in publishing this? And they'll say, absolutely, this is incredible. It'll be $27,000. Hybrid publishers are more discerning. They care about what's in their catalog. They may not be making money off the back end of sales, or they might. That part is where there's a difference, and neither is necessarily good or bad. It's just 2 different business models. But either way, even if they're not making any money off the back end, my publishing house, Finn Phyllis Press, I make no money off the back end of 99% of the books that I publish. There are a couple of instances where I've gotten into a different publishing agreement with a few different authors, but for the most part, the cord is cut at the end. But my name is still on the book. My imprint is still on the book. So I want to be proud. I share my author's books. I help promote my author's books, even though I do not have a financial investment in how well they do. I'm proud of them. I've become their friend. I want more people to have their hands on their work. So that's important to me to do that. And I'm not going to do that for a book that I don't believe in or for an author that is writing purely for selfish reasons. So hybrid publishers are typically far more discerning about who they publish than vanity publishers. So yes, even though they're author financed, authors can have a level, if they're looking to feed that, oh my gosh, they think it's good, they can still do that through hybrid publishing. Because if it's a reputable hybrid publisher, they're going to say no more times than they say yes. I truly believe that if we were more clear, and I don't expect people outside of this space to be clear on any of this, for the record. I often work with extremely successful people in their own space who, for some reason, feel badly because they don't know more about the publishing space. And I am like, why would you know more about this? This is why I go to a mechanic when my car falls apart. I don't Google how to change my own oil. I probably have done that, but I'm not doing it. I trust them to do it, and I pay them to do it. None of us knows everything there is to know about everything. I mean, some people think they do, but that's just not how it works. So it's okay that you don't know all the things, but find a resource that can help you feel comfortable going in one direction or another. And by the way, if you decide, you know what, I really want this traditional thing. I understand the advance may not be huge, or it might be. It might take a couple years to come out. They're not going to do my marketing. I may end up not having a say in the cover design. They may change my title. My editor may switch in the middle. Like whatever it is. But you're like, nope, that's what I want. I am here to support you 100%. And if in a year or 2 years or 5 years, you say, you know what, I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired of no one believing in this the way that I do. Or maybe it's not that they don't believe in it. They just don't, it's not the right time for them as the agent or for them as the editor or for the publishing house. You keep in mind that publishing houses have to keep variety too. So if an editor at a publishing house just acquired a book with the same exact theme as yours, the same plot point, the same plot twists, the same life story if it's a memoir, they are more than likely not going to now acquire yours, even if they fall head over heels in love with it and you, because it disrupts the diversification that they need in their portfolio. Remember, and I don't know exactly what the number is, so I am making this up, but only to a degree. For every 10 titles that a traditional house acquires, only one of them is making solid income. They're willing to take a risk on all of them. They believe in all of them, but only one, maybe two, is going to hit. And that's why in the publishing space, when we hear things like, oh, traditional, HarperCollins is down, like their quarterly earnings are down, they'll report, well, it's because last quarter we released the latest Harry Potter, or last quarter Emily Henry had a new book come out, or, last year Colleen Hoover published 37 books, and this year she's only published 7, and I'm making that up. And so our earnings reflect that. It's not a testament to the industry as a whole. It doesn't mean people are buying fewer books. It means that publishing houses are upheld by the books that take off. And no editor knows which books will take off before they do. They can assume, oh, it's a Colleen Hoover, it's going to go big. And then maybe that's the one that kind of doesn't. Maybe it only sells 6 million copies, not 22 million. And so on the outside, we're like, yeah, but it sold 6 million copies. And the publisher's going, but we thought it was going to sell 22 million. And we did a print run that was correlated with that. And now we're sitting on all these returns and all these discounts and we're losing money on the deal. That has happened to someone, but I'm certainly not suggesting that's happened to Colleen Hoover. I'm just using that as an example. You can switch. You can do your first book as a self-published author or as a hybrid published author and find a partner who can come in and help you make it amazing. And then you can go out there and do all the marketing and then you can decide, you know what, for the next book, I think I'm going to try to get an agent. And if that doesn't go well, you can say, you know what, I'm going to self-publish again, or I'm not going to publish this one at all. You can traditionally publish and decide, you know what, that just wasn't exactly what I thought it was, but now I have this huge following and I've got a lot of people on my list. I'm going to try to self or hybrid publish the next one and see how that goes. To come back to Colleen Hoover has multiple books that are traditionally published with different houses, and she still self-publishes from time to time. Very few people know that or talk about it. Her latest book that just came out, and I can't remember what the name is right now, but it's got kind of a fuzzy cover. The title is a little bit fuzzy on the cover, and I know it came with this kind of explicit warning like, hey, if your 14 and 15-year-olds are loving my books, this might be one to not buy them. I think it's very racy or something along those lines. But at any rate, that book was originally self-published. Now it's being re-released. Colleen Hoover's very first book, Slammed, was self-published. No matter what publishing model you go with, you have to believe in your book more than anyone else. You have to, and I don't say, you don't have to do anything. If you've been listening to me for a while, you know I will repeat that. You don't have to do anything. If you want the book to sell, if you want to get it into people's hands, to enlighten, to inform, to entertain them, whatever the goal is, I'm going to say you have to be willing to find a way that's comfortable. Take small steps. Start simple, get fancy later. Make one bold move or one half bold move. You can sign up for my 25 days of bold moves on the publishaprofitablebook.com website. It's my 25 days of doing things that feel a little bit uncomfortable to help you take that next step. But just do one small thing. You don't have to dance on TikTok. You don't have to go on a world tour. You don't have to wrap a bus with the cover of your book. There's nothing in that realm that you have to do. You don't have to do anything specific. But if you want to sell books and you want to continue to build a career, a presence, an awareness of you, your topic, your writing style, whatever, then you do have to be willing to put yourself out there and be seen and find new, creative, fun ways to be seen. Somehow, I have no doubt that this episode has still left people with questions, and I completely get it. So I encourage you to email me, elizabeth@elizabethlyons.com, or direct message me over on Instagram. My handle is @ElizabethLyonsAuthor, and ask me the question that I didn't cover in this episode. If I do not know the answer, I will source it. I will get different opinions because everyone has, there's no one person who's the quintessential know-it-all when it comes to how all this works. But I am beyond happy to ask people who have been in the space, whether it's traditional, hybrid, or self-publishing for years and years and years, what their experience has been in a particular area, what they would do differently another time, what they didn't expect that was great, what they didn't expect that was not so great, so that you have a full, well-rounded picture of what each of these options looks like, and you can make a decision that feels amazing when it comes to which approach you want to go with for your first book or your next book. And that's why I interview on this podcast self-published authors, hybrid published authors, traditionally published authors, because I think it's so important to hear all of their experiences and to realize that someone who publishes with HarperCollins in May of 2017 is probably going to have a different experience from someone who publishes with Simon & Schuster in September of 2022, who's going to have a completely different experience from someone who hybrid or self-publishes in, May of 2024. We're not even there yet, but everyone's experiences, even in the same, it's like they say, multiple kids can grow up in the same household and have completely different experiences. This is the same. So let's just keep talking about it and sharing our experiences and hearing other people's experiences so that we can feel more confident as we go along on our writing and publishing journeys. That is it for today. I will talk to you guys again next week. Thanks so much for joining me. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you enjoyed this episode, this is your friendly reminder to follow or subscribe, leave a quick review, and share it with someone you know has a great story or message, but isn't sure what to do next. Also, remember to check out publishaprofitablebook.com for book writing resources and tips, and to see all the ways we can work together to get your book out into the world. Again, thanks so much for listening, and I'll talk with you again soon.